So far in the training, we've mainly discussed selling in person or over the phone, verbal communication. Now we're going to concentrate on selling via written content. Now you're going to have to produce various forms of written content in your job as a recruitment consultant. We'll concentrate here on some of the main ones, but there's basic rules of written copy that apply to most areas of communication that you're doing via the written word. So anything that relates to emails, advertising, tweeting, blogging, contacting people on social media. There are some basic principles that apply to all of those forms of written content, and then there's some specifics that apply to writing adverts and a couple of other elements of the recruitment job. We're going to work through now understanding the basic principles and why we do things in a certain way and how you influence people to take behaviours that you want them to using written sales techniques. And then we're going to focus on specifics on content like advert writing, how you structure an advert, and how you get people to do what you want them to do via structuring the advert and the content of it correctly. So first of all, let's think through all the areas that we're going to need to write content for. So advertising obviously is a very important one, and we'll talk a lot in detail about that. However, if you think carefully about your daily communication, how you're influencing people on every single email, every single tweet, every single social media post, every single blog you might write, there is a structure to it that enables you to influence what people then do after they've read the content, which is very, very important. You'll also be involved in writing mail shots. So we'll talk more in detail about how you structure a mail shot, and that could be putting an advert together to send to a large number of potential candidates on the database, or it could be creating a profile of a candidate and sending it out to targeted clients to generate interest in that candidate. Again, there's a structure to the content of that mail shot that will enable you to get the message across succinctly and get a call to action in place that influences what the reader of the mail shot then does. It's very important that you follow the basic principles of recruitment copy in order that you get the action from your effort, otherwise it's a waste of time. So let's now focus on the first area of content and the specifics of how we write the rules of content. Some of these things may sound very simple, and yet people repeatedly make mistakes on them, so I'll assume you know nothing and I'll start from the basics and go through everything. First rule is spelling. Now there's lots of different platforms that you might write content on. They may or may not have spell checks. Very simple rule is whatever you're writing, write it in an email or a Word document first and spell check it. When we release content out into the world, particularly onto the internet, it's there for good and you can't delete it. If you make a poor spelling mistake, that could follow you around for ages. A good example I can give you of this is someone I saw who was writing an advert for a role that had a shift allowance with it. So they were working morning shifts and evening shifts, and they missed the F out and they spelt it as shit allowance. That advert you can still find on the internet, and it follows that person around for life. So just make sure you do a spell check before you put your content out. Same with punctuation and grammar. Poor punctuation and grammar can lead to less people reacting to what you want them to with the content that you produce. If you think about this, we're writing content that enables people that are quite senior in their careers or earning lots amount of money or high day rates to want to buy into you to influence their next job move. If you cannot punctuate or use correct grammar in your advertising or your emails with them, it will not enable them to buy into you as the expert who's going to guide them in their career. So just take some time every time you're communicating with someone in a written form to make sure that it's been spell checked and you've got correct punctuation and grammar. If you're not sure, get someone else to check it before you send it out. It's very simple. We all work here as a team. It doesn't have to be someone senior. It can just be someone on your team you know is good at spell checking and punctuation. Just get them to take a quick look at something before you make it live on the internet and ensure that you've done your best to get it correct. So be aware of the use of capital letters. Capitalizing in most of the content we produce looks like you're shouting. You don't want titles or large blocks of text with capital letters because it comes over as very aggressive, so just avoid that. With all the communication that we have, you've got to think about what the content of what you're writing is doing. Now, we're wanting most people who are reading this content to take some sort of action. So in amongst all the information that you're relaying to someone, you've got to remember the basic principle of an abbreviation called WIFM. What's in it for me? So the person reading it has to understand what's in it for them as an individual to take the action that you're wanting them to. So you've got to give detail around what's in it for them, and then every single communication you have has to have a call to action at the end of it. The same as when we're talking to a candidate or a client, we agree an action or a commitment. Every form of your written communication has to make it clear what action you want the person to take. So how you want them to contact you, or what you want them to do next. So in amongst all the content, it has to make it clear what's in it for the person reading it to take an action, and then you have to make it very clear what that action is. Now we'll give you some examples of good adverts and good copy that make both of these elements clear. You're going to have to make it everybody understand what it is you're trying to communicate, and most importantly, what's in it for them and what do they need to do next. What you'll find if you get the content correct, the what's in it for me correct, and the call to action on every single element of copy you write, is you'll find the incidence of people reacting in the way that you want them to increases dramatically. It sounds simple, right? If you tell people exactly what you want them to do and why they should do it, they're more likely to do it. And yet a lot of content that you'll read from competitive recruitment consultants or companies advertising themselves won't make these things clear. You should even take this to the extent of your things like LinkedIn connections or communication on social media. If you're sending out connections to people on LinkedIn all the time and you send out the basic message that comes with LinkedIn to connect, the incidence of people accepting those connection requests will be lower than if you give them a reason to do it. So you'd explain to them that you're an expert in your market, you'd like to connect with them so that you can share relevant content to them in their career. It's very simple. You can save that on LinkedIn. You'll increase the number of people that then connect with you. So you've got to look at every stage of written communication throughout the recruitment process, and before you do it, when you're setting things up, just think carefully, what's in it for the reader, and have I told them what I want them to do? If you take those basic principles along with getting your spelling, your punctuation, your grammar correct, you're already winning half the battle with your communication in written form. So now let's get into the specifics of advert writing. You're going to be writing adverts for pretty much every role that you work. There's a very sensible and logical reason for this. The communication of the opportunities that you're working enables you to get active and passive candidates applying to you if they've seen the advert, plus also it enhances your digital footprint hugely. Now, in the modern world, everybody who you interact with is probably going to Google you to find out who you are. When they do that, you want them to see that you are an expert in your vertical market. This is your personal brand recognition and the company's. So every time you write an advert, and you write it via our website or you put it out onto the internet, it's increasing your personal brand recognition, and the keywords that you're putting in those adverts associate you with that specialism. So the more you do this and the more frequently you do it, you'll become higher on every search engine, and everybody that searches for you will associate you as an expert with the skill set that you're telling them that you are. Now, what you'll find over time is, again, the more you do this and the more diligent you are with it, the more it bears fruit. So you write your first advert, you're probably not going to be flooded with people that apply that are perfect for the job. You write your 1000th advert, then every single one of them before that is also going to enhance the likelihood that the person will apply who's right for the job. So this isn't a one-hit wonder, it's a momentum. You start it, you build it, you do it continuously. Every one of them needs to be quality, it needs to be interesting, because every one of them that is and fits with the criteria of search engine optimization will enhance your digital brand and make you more successful. At the beginning of your career, you have to make more of an effort, but every time you write an advert, you also save it in a library so you can recycle the content. It becomes easier if you do it over and over again. So we'll show you how to save that content, and to begin with, you'll have to think quite carefully about how you describe each company, how you describe each role. But then over time, you'll build up a content library of adverts you've written previously, and you'll also develop a vocabulary that you're comfortable with describing the types of companies and roles that you advertise. And it's important that you commit to this early and you start working on building that digital brand and footprint. Your life will become an awful lot easier if you've built your brand to the point where candidates and clients are coming to you, because when they search for a solution to their problem of who do they go and find to help them hire someone, or who do they go and find to help advise with their career, if you're the first person that comes up, they're going to call you first. It's a very simple principle, but it takes time and effort. Now, to begin with, you're probably going to get some traction anyway, because we post adverts out to our own website and multiple other websites. People will find them anyway because the business is search engine optimized, and so are the job boards. However, the more you do it, the more momentum you get, the more people will find you. It's a basic principle of advertising in the digital age. You don't know how lucky you are, because when I started out in recruitment, we used to write adverts in the back of magazines, and you got one per week that you were allowed to write. So the response on that was pretty terrible. Nowadays, it's amazing. You write one advert, within 30 seconds you can have people applying. If you're not doing it, you're failing at a basic principle of the job of making your life simple and easy and getting candidates coming to you that are actively looking. Now, why is that important? Well, if they're actively looking and they're applying to jobs with you, they're also active in the market. They may be right for your job, but they will also have copious amounts of commercial information that is valuable for you to build your desk. Again, if you're working in a vertical market, you can recycle that information around. They'll be able to tell you where they're interviewing, what other opportunities they're applying for, what are the recruiters they're dealing with, what's going on at their current company, and it creates a valuable information flow through your desk for spending 5 minutes writing an advert. So this is a hugely important thing to get right and get in the habit of doing frequently. So a common acronym to remember when you're writing adverts is AIDA. A-I-D-A. Stands for attention, interest, desire, and action. And if you apply that over every advert you write, you'll know whether or not it's a good advert. So has it grasped someone's attention? Now, the main way you're going to do this is with the title of the advert. And you have to make it interesting. So those 2 points go together. You can grab someone's attention with a title, and then you have to also make it interesting in order to do that, but you have to make the content interesting. Is the content of your advert more interesting than everyone else's? Now, it's very easy to forget why you're advertising and just get in the habit of knocking out some boring advert to think, oh, they've asked me to advertise, so I've done it. However, if you put a small amount of effort into it and make it interesting, then it'll come higher up the search engine rankings because more people will click on it and it will enhance your digital brand. But just pay a little bit of attention to think, if I've put senior Java developer, is that as interesting as senior Java developer in awesome startup? Senior Java developer in an innovative investment bank. So you're making it a little bit more interesting, so more people are going to click on your advert. So you've grabbed their attention, you've made it interesting, now the content has to be interesting. You're looking at how do you influence the reader to pay attention and want to read on. The desire element of the advert is trying to overcome the objections the same way as you do when you're selling people. If you can't get a customer to want the advert or the opportunity within the advert, then you're not going to get them to follow the call to action. So whilst the content can be interesting, you've also got to make it desirable. So what is in it for the individual? So that's got to be important. If there's lots of very interesting content but it doesn't make it clear why the individual should want it, there's a lack of desire for them to take the next step, which is the call to action. Now, what is that call to action? You're typically, from an advert, going to want the candidate that's reading it or the person going through the content to send you their CV or resume, or to apply to the job, or to contact you. And there might be different methods to do that depending on what platform you're advertising on. And you need to communicate with them correctly how they should get in touch with you, or whether they should forward that information on to a colleague. So that call to action has to be clear. So we've got AIDA. Attention, interest, desire, action. So let's talk through how you search engine optimize each advert that you post on the internet. So first of all, you've got to look at posting the key search terms in the job title of the advert. So if you're looking for a CPA accountant or a Java developer or a technical architect, make sure that that is in the job title and in the content of the advert. So the more places you can post that key search term, then the higher up it will become in your search engines. So it will become higher up in job boards, on the internet in general, on Google searches, if you're putting the content, the key search terms in the title and the content of the advert. Typically, the more recent adverts will also come at the top of search engine criteria. So if you've posted an advert, you had some responses, but now it's a week old, you have to repost the advert to get more candidates coming through. or you have to change the content slightly to make it interesting and pop up the top of search engines again. So first of all, the things we need to think about are, have you got the key search criteria in the title, and have you refreshed or reposted your advert to keep candidates applying? Now we've got to look at how we're describing some of the content in the advert. So a mistake that a lot of people make is pluralizing the job title or the skills. If you are an accountant or a Java developer, you are not searching for jobs for Java developers or accountants, because there's only one of you and you only need one job. So if you pluralize any of the content, you're going to go down the search engine rankings and less people are going to find your advert. So therefore less people are going to apply. So make sure you're putting job titles or skills in the singular rather than plural, otherwise you'll find the application rate decreases dramatically. You've also got to make sure that your job titles that you're using are the most common versions of that job title. What you'll find is that some companies have quite quirky or specific words for how they explain things. And you'll take some time to figure this out in your specific market. Make sure you talk to the consultants around you and ensure that you've got the most common version of that job title. If you're advertising the role with the version that a company uses, which is very specific, you've got two problems. People aren't going to find that advert who want to apply for it. If you've got a common job title, like say for instance a developer, and you've described it as an engineer or something a little bit different, people are going to miss it because they're searching for the job title of a developer. The second point on that is if it's specific to a company and they've got a quirky job title, people know who that company is. Other recruiters are going to be looking at your adverts to try and get leads as to where you're advertising jobs so they can try and win that business. If you've used terminology that is specific to a company and they know that, they will then chase that lead. Same with candidates. If they understand that terminology directly, they will apply directly to the company rather than going through you and following your advert. So you've got to make sure you use terms that are common and that everybody understands that people are going to search for, and aren't too specific that give the information away as to what company you're advertising. We'll come back to that later on when we're describing the company on an advert, because if you get that wrong, also people will apply directly or chase your ads for leads. So really good adverts follow pretty much exactly the same structure. And if you go and open any newspaper and look at good companies that have put employment adverts in them, or you start to look at adverts online, you'll see that there's a lot that follow a common structure and they appear good and you understand them, and then there's a load of random ones. Now what we're going to concentrate on is how we follow a good common structure to every advert that enables a candidate to follow a sensible flow with a call to action at the end of it. They understand what the company does, what the role is, why they should apply to it, and what they need to do. So it's a basic flow that you need to concentrate on with every advert. Now we're not writing War and Peace here. We don't have to win any Booker prizes or anything like that. We're communicating clearly to a candidate in a succinct way why they should be interested in this opportunity, why they should apply to it, and how they should do it. So first off, we're going to concentrate on explaining the company. Now, this needs to be a paragraph, 3 or 4 lines, and you need to convey to the candidate why this company is interesting and what they're doing that should make them want to be part of it. Now, again, similarly with the specific terms that you could use in the content of an email that could give the company away, you can't just lift directly off of a job spec or off the company's website the exact details of what they're doing. There are other recruiters that will be looking at your adverts that will lift that content, paste it into Google and find out what the company is, and they will chase the job and the business for themselves. Same with a candidate. If it's very obvious, they'll go to that company's website and apply directly. So you have to sanitize it a little bit and make sure that it's clear what type of company it is and why it's interesting, but not what exact company it is. Otherwise, people will cut you out of the process and go directly. So things that can give that away are very specific details, like if a company on their job spec says we have 103,000 employees operating 23 offices globally, that's very specific. And if you put that in the company description on the advert, people will know that they can take that information and find out where it is. Same with the location. If it's an industry, if it's a specific company in an industry in a unique location, then the two together, if there's only one of those companies, then they will know what company it is and they'll apply directly. So you've got to communicate why it's interesting, but not too specific. Then we go on to explaining the role in the company. This is an important part of the advert that, again, a lot of bad adverts get wrong. So what you've got to explain on this role is what the role entails and why it's interesting. So what is the candidate going to be doing in the role and why are they going to be doing it? This should be contained on the job spec, or you should have this information from the client, but it needs to be conveyed because the candidate's always going to be thinking, what's in it for me? So this has to convey why the role is interesting and what they're going to get out of it. Then we're going to need to include, possibly in bullet points if it's easier, because visually the candidate looking at the advert can see this easier, the key skills that the client is looking for. So the essential skills and possibly even the desirable skills in bullet point form. So the candidate looking at the advert their eye can be drawn to that and say, does this apply to me? So they've seen the company and why it's interesting, they've seen the role and why it's going to be interesting, and then is it right for them? What are the key skills? Then the next stage we've got to look at is what are the benefits for the candidate? What are they going to gain from joining this company or going to this role? Now that could be exposure to key stakeholders, that could be unique skills that are going to make them valuable, it could be incredible benefits like great food at a canteen with the company. But there's got to be something that candidate that's looking at the job is going to gain from doing this job that they might not have in their current role or get at any other opportunity. So we've got really clear now what's in it for them. What's in it for them to join the company, what's in it for them to do this role, whether the skills that they have are correct to apply for the role, what are they going to gain from going to this opportunity versus any other that would be unique, and then what is the call to action. So what do you want them to do next? Do you want them to apply via a certain mechanism? Do you want them to send you an email? Do you want them to call you? What is the call to action? So we've got company, then we've got the role, then we've got the skills, then we've got the benefits and what they're going to gain, and a call to action. And they're just paragraphs, okay? So don't kill yourself thinking this through in intimate detail, spending hours writing the advert. The best thing to do is write the content quickly and then compare it with someone else or ask someone for help. Don't stare at a blank page for ages, don't write a lengthy tome. Get 4 paragraphs down, make sure that the content is concise, and ask someone for help. And then you'll find you get really super quick at this. And the more content you get out that is good, then the better you're going to come up in search engine rankings. The content and copy for e-shots that you're going to send to candidates is pretty much the same as an advert that you're going to write. So what an e-shot does is enables you to cover a lot of candidates that you've got on your system already really quickly and more efficiently than you could do by calling them. This is particularly prevalent and important in contract work where speed to market is essential. It's also a very valuable tool in permanent recruitment. Now you've got to bear in mind, for every role that you work, you're competing with other recruiters in other companies. So the quicker that you can reach the candidates with the content about an opportunity, the more successful you're likely to be, and the better chance you've got of beating them to the punch. So one easy way to do this is to search for a list of candidates on our database first who could be suitable for the role and have key criteria that are necessary to be successful at the job. Whether they're looking or not right now, you can send them an e-shot with the details of the advert and give them a clear call to action. So pretty much the same content as you write in the advert you would use on the e-shot, and all the same rules apply: spelling, punctuation, grammar, header, call to action, etc. They all still apply. So you've got to make the content interesting, but first of all with this, important because it's an email, you've got to make the title really interesting as well. You've probably got a little bit more to play with on a title on an email than you have on an advert, so you can really make it pack a punch and make someone want to open that email. And the content of the email can be exactly the same, but you've also got more variable options on the call to action. You can let them know, for instance, that if the opportunity is not right for them, but they know someone who it could be right for, feel free to forward them the email and CC us in, so we can contact them. So you can put a little bit more detail in here, you can be a little bit more specific with a call to action. It's a very valuable tool to take good content and mail it to a bunch of candidates as soon as you get an opportunity. So you're putting an opportunity out on an advert, which can get people to go search for it, and you can get active and passive candidates applying. But also, if you've got a selection of candidates that you know could be right for the role in our database, send the advert to them and give them a clear call to action to involve all of their network immediately. Now, they may be passive candidates as well, they might not be actively looking, and there may be some ones that are active in there that you didn't know were. If you're constantly communicating with your candidate pools via this method, you'll find you get referrals, you reignite people's interest in opportunities, you take passive candidates and make them active, but the copy has to be good. If you're sending crap copy to people all the time, they will want to be removed from your mailing list. And that's when you've lost the contact with a candidate and a potential relationship moving forward. So we're also going to cover now the content that you use when you're marketing candidates or doing what we call sending speculative CVs. And this is a very important part of the job, and just like advertising, it's all about momentum. So if we go back to the basic principle of the desk that you run is your business, you're going to have to use marketing all the time about the products that you have. Now, most companies in the world are doing this all the time, very effectively and very successfully. They're using social media, they're using direct mail marketing, and they're using advertising. So if you think logically about the way that you're running your desk, you're using advertising and mail shots to attract candidates to your desk, that's your product. So you also want to be taking that quality product that you get out to your client base who are going to buy from you. Now, if you're missing that piece of the puzzle and you're not constantly contacting your client base, you might have great product, nobody knows about it, so nobody's going to buy from you. So you've also got to write content that you're marketing out to clients all the time. Now, this content follows the same principles in that it has to be spelled correctly, punctuated correctly, have carefully grammar checked, and it also has to have the same principles of AIDA. So it's clear, it's interesting, it grabs their attention, it gives them a desire for the product, and it gives them a clear call to action. So let's talk about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and then it'll become obvious why the momentum is important and you need to do it all the time. So speculative CVs, the easiest way to understand how and why you're doing this is to compare it to a pizza menu. So when you're sat at home and you get a pizza menu through your letterbox, you do a couple of things with that probably. So if you're not interested in having a pizza at that point, but the menu looks really good and the pizza on it looks amazing, you're probably going to put it in a drawer or put it on a pinboard somewhere and save that pizza menu for when you really want a pizza. So it's valuable marketing. If you happen to be watching late night Saturday TV or something like that and you can't be bothered to cook, and a pizza menu drops to your letterbox, you may well order a pizza there and then from the menu that's been dropped for your letterbox, because you have a desire for a pizza at that point in time. The other thing you might do is get a pizza menu for your letterbox and go, it's a pizza menu, I've got loads of them already, I'll put it in the bin. Now, either one of those is quite useful, because in the worst case scenario of the last version of that where you put the pizza menu in the bin, there may even be a sense of brand recognition. So it's still not a terrible thing, and it's very low cost, very easy thing to do. Hence, you get lots of pizza menus all the time. So we're doing the exact same thing when we're marketing out a candidate. The same principles apply. Now, first of all, the picture of the pizza on the pizza menu normally looks pretty awesome. Normally looks like the best pizza you've ever seen. And then when you order one, the one that shows up may not look quite so good. So the same thing happens with the candidates that we send out. So you're going to get candidates coming through your inbox every week that are relevant for your vertical market. Some of them are going to look amazing, but those people are going to get snapped up real quick. But they're the ones we want to market out to our client base to say, hey, look what we've got. We're experts in our marketplace, and these are the kind of quality candidates that we have. So we want to take their resumes or the details on their resumes and send it to our client base to let them know that these are the people that we represent all the time. Now, a couple of things are going to happen, exactly the same as a pizza menu. Occasionally, you're going to hit a client with the details of a resume or a resume itself, and they're going to be actively looking for that kind of candidate. And they're going to come back with a response straight away saying, I'm interested in this person, or a variant on that. They may come back with some other buying signals. They might reply and say, we're not looking for that type of candidate right now. In which case, it makes it a very warm business development call for you, because the subtle clue in that buying sign is they are looking for a type of candidate, just not that one. but it enables you to do a warm business development call. When we come on to business development, we'll see that sending speculative CVs and candidate profiles that are really good to clients warms up every possible business development call. So if you were going to contact someone and they'd never heard of you before and claim that you're a specialist in your market, that's a harder call than sending someone a great resume and CV first so they can see that you represent good people and you've got good recruitment product, and then calling them because they know who you are and they know you're representing someone that's good. So point number one, the ideal scenario, they're recruiting for that exact type of candidate and they reach back out to you and reply on an email or call you straight up and say, I'm interested in this person. Point number two is that they do regularly recruit those people, but they might not be looking for them right now. So they may reply and say, good CV, not looking right now, or let's keep in touch. Or they might just file your CV. Just put it in an inbox. So they say, that looks good, but I don't need it right now, but I'll keep it there and contact them when I do need it. Now this has happened recently in our UK office where 6 months after we'd sent someone a speculative CV, they called up with jobs. Now we're recruiting, that's a brand new client. So this works, and it works repeatedly, and we'll include some examples in the training of versions of specs that have gone out that have created a response. Now this, like advertising, is a brand identity and it takes momentum. So you have to do this on a regular basis over and over again. Now we're going to send it to existing clients who we haven't been in touch with a while as a way of keeping in contact with them. We're going to send spec CVs to develop new business, to companies that we haven't dealt with before. But then our first point of contact with them is demonstrating we've got a great product that we're then going to contact them about. The worst case scenario on a speculative CV when it hits someone's inbox is they look at it and they hit delete. That is the worst thing that can happen. So there's no downside to doing this, and just like advertising, it takes a small amount of time and you can reach a huge amount of people. Sending a great candidate out to a number of clients every week via our system, you have to write one email, press send. So the time and effort goes into creating the list of the right people to send it to, but then you write the email once and send it. So it's a very, very useful tool to reaching a larger number of people than you're probably going to be able to reach on phone calls in a day with a great product. So it's very similar to advertising. You're telling the world you've got great jobs on advertising and you're getting candidates to apply, and then using speculative CVs, you're telling your client base that you've got great candidates, current or future client base. Basic principles of running a business, you've got to use marketing tools to let your client base know who you are and where to find you. It's a very simple process. You have to do it repeatedly. Now, I've heard people say, I've sent out a speculative CV and it didn't work. Well, it's not going to if you do it once. You have to do this every week and get in a discipline of organising your time in the week to do client marketing with good product to let them know who you are and where you are and how to contact you. So there are some simple rules of sending out speculative CVs in the same way as there are advertising or any other copy. Now first of all, if we go back to the pizza menu analogy again, if the picture of the pizza on the menu was the same as the one you got, you'd probably never make the call. So you have to send what we call a high value candidate in your specific market to the client base. Now what constitutes a high value candidate in each market has some different terms. So some are common, that makes a good candidate in every market, and some things are different depending on whether you're a tech recruiter, a finance recruiter, a perm recruiter, a contract recruiter, and what's valuable in one market might not be in another. So this is going to take you a little while to learn, and again the colleagues on your desk will help you to understand what is a good candidate. But again, the basic principle of when you're on a rookie desk, you're aiming to get around about 50 candidates into your desk every week. You've got to find one high value candidate per week that fits the criteria that you think is going to be interesting to your client base to send out. So of those 50 that come in, there doesn't have to be one that's right for a job that you're recruiting right now, but you have to be able to find a really good candidate that you think your client base is going to be interested in and market that candidate out. So what are the qualities of a high value candidate? Well, if you think about this logically, there's some consistent things and some which might be unique to contract or perm. Now, first of all, you're going to look at stability. Now that means different things for perm and contract. So a perm candidate would need to have good stints in roles, maybe 2-3 years or more, and have a logical progression through their CV. Now Stability in a contract CV may be regular contracts of 6 to 9 months or more, and also potentially going back to places they've worked previously. Now, both of these criteria are going to be interesting to a line manager if they're looking for a perm or a contract candidate, but the stability means different things depending on whether it is perm or contract. Also, they're going to need to have some hard to source skill sets. So something about their experience in their profile that makes them unique or in demand. There's no point sending an average candidate out on a marketing email. You need something that is going to pique their interest or be unique about them that you can draw their attention to in the body of the email. Now, you're also going to want to make sure, ideally, particularly if they're a perm candidate, they've got a decent education background. This is very, very valuable in perm, less important in contract. So when you're sending out a permanent candidate, the ideal candidate has a unique skill set, they have good long stability stints on their CV, and they've got a good education. Now again, on perm more than contract, we're looking ideally at a candidate that's worked at some really good brands. There's a perception for a permanent candidate that if you've worked at a good solid company or a big brand, then you're going to be a catch for the next company, because those brands will have done a comprehensive screening process, and if you've been there a long time, you must be good, you must have good qualities. On a contract basis, the brand is less important, but the quality of the project work that they've done, the technical skills that they've used, whether they've implemented things on time and on budget are more important. So you have to highlight a candidate on the contract basis that's delivered great work and good projects. Brand, less important. If they have done that in a good brand as well, then they're really a high value candidate. So you have to spend time with the consultants that you're working with to figure out on your vertical market, what is a high value candidate? What is your best looking pizza that you're going to send out? And it differs depending on what market you're in. But get clear what those qualities are, and then when you're looking at candidates coming through your desk every week, you're looking for two things. So if people are applying to your adverts or you're headhunting people, you're going to look at candidates that have the specific skill sets for the roles that you're working, and you're also going to be keeping an eye out for candidates that are great high value candidates you can market out. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. Further down the training, we'll look at how you become efficient with the use of your time, and therefore you can look at what candidates you market out. Ideally, you're going to want to market high value candidates out that also match up with jobs that you're working right now. Now the reason for that is that you might have a job that you're working right now that you already have 4 candidates interviewing for. If you take the best looking one of those candidates and market them out, and you can get one more job on in anywhere, in any client base that's looking for that exact same skill set, you can get that candidate you market out and interview, but you can also get every other candidate you have interviewing your other job interviewing at that opportunity. That's very efficient use of your time. You're finding jobs for your portfolio of candidates that you already have, rather than just filling jobs that your clients that are existing are asking for. Now, that way you can reuse all the candidates that you've already got. You can sell them another opportunity, so you're controlling their recruitment process, you're filling up their time with your clients and going on your interviews. You're going to fill 2 jobs with the same amount of candidates it's taking to find for 1 job. So that's a very, very useful and efficient use of your time. It's a very, very sensible reason why you should be sending out spec CVs. So if you can find a high value candidate that matches up with a job you're recruiting right now, that's the one you need to send out. If you've got okay candidates for the jobs you're recruiting right now, but coming through your inbox at any point or from anywhere is a really awesome high value candidate, you also have to send that one out. Now, there's no reason why you have to do only 1 mail shot a week. If you've got a great high value candidate for a job you're working on, send that one out. And then if another one comes through your desk in a week that's an awesome candidate that doesn't match up with your job, you can spend time doing a distribution list to send that one out as well. It doesn't have to be the same client base, but you can do 2 mail shots in a week. There isn't a reason why you're going to have to work up to the standard, you can go beyond. And if you've got great valuable product coming through your desk in a week, tell the world about it. So what are you going to write on the email that you send out describing your candidate? First of all, you need to keep this relatively succinct. If you're attaching the candidate's resume, which we'll have to make sure is sanitized so it doesn't have too much details about the company they're working for and so on it, the purpose of the email is to get the reader to click on the resume or the CV. So the content of the email has to be succinct, to the point, and give a clear call to action. So when you're sending an email out to a hiring manager, you've got to bear in mind that they get lots of emails in their inbox in a day, and they're going to want to understand immediately what that email is for and what they need to do. Otherwise, they'll go straight for the delete. So the title and the subject of the email, again, has to be really interesting. It has to attract their attention. You can't just say Java developer. It has to say awesome Java developer with something else. So it grabs their attention. They're going to want to open the email first. And then in the content of the email, you have to introduce yourself, but keep that brief and succinct, because they don't really care about you at this stage. You want them to read the email and understand that you've got a great product. So the things that they're interested in, a typical hiring manager, again, there's another acronym for this you can understand. They want to know typically what a candidate has saved, accomplished, or made. Those are the three things you can think about what your candidate has done. So the abbreviation is SAM. What have they saved the company? What have they accomplished for a company? Or what have they made for a company? Because typically, if they can tick one or more of those boxes, they're going to be interesting. So that's what you explain about the candidate, and then again in bullet points you want to get down some key skills about the individual that are going to emphasize the points you've made about what they've saved, accomplished, or made. Then you're going to need a call to action on the email to tell the line manager what they need to do. They need to contact you about that candidate. They can call you, they can email you. If it's not right for them but it's right for someone else, they can forward it on to them. But you need to have a clear call to action. So again, the same rules of copy apply. And this, in particular, don't screw up your spelling and your punctuation and your grammar. Get it checked if you're not sure. Again, over time, you'll build up a library of spec emails that you've sent out to clients that you can amend and tweak for each candidate. You want to make sure that you're not sending to the same line managers all the time and vary it. So you'll also be building distribution lists for slightly different skill sets. So you're going to cover your client base as much as possible and be adding to them all the time. You've got to focus on sending out a good product. Keep these emails succinct, and then people are less likely to get bored of them. If they have to scroll through the email too much to get to the bottom of the call to action, then they're probably going to delete it. So this has got to get a balance of enough content that makes the individual click on the CV or just read the email and respond. So it's got to have some detail in there, but not too much so the reader gets bored. Again, your respective consultant or manager that you're working with should be able to give you examples of some real life emails that have worked for them, and we'll include some in the training so you can take a look. And it's got to become unique to you how you do this and specific to your market. The key thing is you're getting good product out to line managers on a regular basis, and then you're getting them to look at the CV or the resume if you sent it, or you're getting very clear on the email why they should contact you about this company.